Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Fun Day from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. We're back. We're back with Sunday Fun Day. Good to see all of you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good couple of weeks. Good to see a lot of our familiar faces are back. Susan D and Shell and Lori and the Off-White Lotus. And I say a lot of new names in there. Welcome. If this is your first time with us, my name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for just over 10 years, and then I left to go into private practice as a criminal defense attorney. This is Courtroom Confidential, where we try our best to present to you both sides of the courtroom, and this is Sunday Fun Day. And if you know, you know, but if you don't know, this is where we take your questions that you've left us voice messages throughout the week, and we answer them live today. And today is going to be a really good one. So thank you, everybody, so much for being here. Hope you're all having a wonderful weekend and a wonderful Sunday. I'm doing great. I'm juiced, but I think I'm running on just Courtroom Confidential juice alone because I'm already kind of tired. I was up early this morning because there's been a lot of news coverage, obviously, on the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I'm actually was up early, 4:30 this morning, to do some news TV coverage on that. I'm going to be flying to Utah later today, and so I'll be, if you guys want to check it out, I'll be on Fox News for the next couple of days talking about that case, the arraignment for the shooter who's been arrested in regards to that horrible assassination. But in the meantime, we have a lot of questions. You guys really showed up. Before we get started, as always, please just take a quick moment to like this episode so that YouTube knows that we're here. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you think of someone who you think might enjoy this, please go ahead and share it with them. Stay to the end. We do have some announcements, some fun stuff to tell you guys about, but let's go ahead and jump right into these calls because there's a lot that I want to get to today and I don't want to run out of time. All right. Here we go. First one, Josh is off to a bang up start already. Here we go.
Hey, Josh. I'm not sure if it's too late to ask you this question. This is Susan from Granville, Ohio. And I was wondering if for some crazy reason the jury does not want to convict Donna of conspiracy to commit murder, is there a lesser charge on the table, like aiding and abetting after the fact, something like that, where they would agree on? And could the state also maybe bring charges against Harvey and Wendi if they feel like they don't have enough to charge them with conspiracy? Could they charge them with aiding and abetting after the fact, that they were in on it and knew about it, but maybe didn't plan it in the beginning? I hope that makes sense. Thanks so much for all you guys do. We appreciate you. Have a great day.
Well, thank you, Susan. And yes, it does make sense. First of all, let's put you on the map. Susan from Granville, Ohio. Thank you for kicking us off this morning. Yeah, a lot of these questions are because we missed last week. We were at CrimeCon, so we had to skip a Sunday Fun Day. So we have I appreciate that some of these questions are going to be before the verdict came through, but I think this is still germane to an ongoing discussion, especially when it comes to Harvey and Wendi. Everybody wants to know about Harvey and Wendi, but the same could have gone for Donna. Now, they did find her guilty of murder, but were there other things on the table, or could there have been other things on the table that they could have convicted her of? And it's, especially when we're talking about Harvey and Wendi, a lot of people have been saying, well, what if they cannot prove that they somehow were involved ahead of time? Is there anything that they could still find them guilty and responsible for things that they may have done after the murders? And the answer is obviously yes. You're talking about any kind of obstruction charge. So you're talking about things about like destroying evidence, lying to police, even though lying to police is not technically a crime, but if you're using that to kind of further a crime, it can be any kind of maybe harboring A fugitive might be something that creative they could think about with Harvey. But again, I think the argument could be made she wasn't technically a fugitive at the time that they hopped on the plane to Vietnam. But there are a bunch of creative things. But what you're talking about is anything that took place afterwards. But when we're getting to things that took place before the murder, they don't need to worry about lesser crimes because they all fall under the umbrella of conspiracy. Conspiracy in its most simplest form has to do with an agreement, meaning a shared kind of understanding between people. But each of those people, each of the co-conspirators does not even have to be aware of all of the other co-conspirators or of the knowledge of all of the other co-conspirators. So in this case, though I don't think it's true, but in this case, they don't necessarily have to prove that Harvey knew that Wendi knew, or Wendi knew that Harvey knew. As long as both Harvey and Wendi were aware of and quote unquote had an agreement with the other people involved in the conspiracy, i.e. Charlie and Donna, now that everybody to the right side of that tree there has been convicted for this murder, then that's enough. That knowledge plus some sort of active in furtherance by somebody in the conspiracy. So it doesn't necessarily even, there's an argument to be made that even Harvey or Wendi necessarily needed to do something in furtherance, though I think there's plenty of evidence that they did. And I think to be safe, they probably will prove that. But, you know, people have talked about, well, how did everybody know where Dan Markel was going to be that morning if it wasn't for Wendi? And how did they supply the money to the shooters if it wasn't for Harvey? So plenty of arguments to be made. I think the prosecution in this case, one thing that we can all rest assured is that it's not, no one is being prosecuted, or let me say it this way. If anyone is not going to be prosecuted, it's not for a lack of aggressiveness or enthusiasm on the part of the prosecution. They have demonstrated that in this case. And if they have the evidence, if they have the goods, they're going to bring the charges. So excellent question, Susan. I appreciate you asking it, getting us kicked off this morning. And it certainly is a thing that a lot of people are talking about, a lot of Donna questions this morning. So we'll get to all of the ins and outs of what to expect. Arizona Gal says, hello, CC fam. It's been a tough week. It has, absolutely. Thank you for that. Sending love to everyone. So glad to see you here. Thank you so much for the kind words. And then Troy, Tumwater Troy said, just became a member. Welcome aboard. I like that little logo that you have there. Thank you guys so much for kicking us off and your generosity this morning. And let's keep it rolling here, huh? And there we go.
Hello, Josh. I am calling from Houston, Texas. My name is Poppy. I have a question about the Adelson trial. If Donna is convicted, do you think there's any chance Wendi and Harvey might want to take an offered plea? Thank you.
We have the smartest audience on YouTube, if you ask me. The Poppy from, first of all, let me put you on the map, Poppy. Poppy from Houston, Texas. There you are. Thank you so much for calling in. I imagine there are not many people that you could talk to in your everyday to-day life and say, use the term Alford plea, and they would know what you're talking about. And the fact that our community knows those things and are conversant in them is just really heartwarming to me. So thank you so much, Poppy, for asking the question. And it's an excellent question. We're talking again about Donna Adelson. And Poppy's question is, let's say they're charged, Wendi and Harvey. Let's assume that they just get charged with a crime. And let's assume that they get charged with something like conspiracy, which we're going to get into this a little bit later. I don't think the government, I don't think the state of Florida is really going to go after them for anything less than that, quite frankly. But could they take an Alford plea? An Alford plea is, according to the Supreme Court, allows a defendant to maintain their innocence while at the same time acknowledge that the prosecution has enough evidence that they're willing to accept a plea. So this came about because it used to be you had to plead guilty, and some defendants felt like, well, listen, I'm not guilty. I don't want to say the words guilty. I don't want to have to plead guilty, but I can see what I'm up against, and I can see the evidence that the prosecution has, and I can see how it looks, and I can imagine how a jury will react to that. So I don't want to take my chances just based upon my own moral standing and say I'm going to trial because I won't plead quote unquote guilty, and then I get found guilty and go off to prison for the rest of my life when the government is willing to offer me something less than that. And so if there's a way for me to quote unquote maintain my innocence and still accept a plea, I'd like to do that. And the Supreme Court said that makes sense to us. We do this all the time in California. In fact, part of the plea agreement says, are you pleading because you feel that it is in your best interest to do so? And that there's a factual basis for it, but it's never really a question, at least in the plea, of saying, did you do this thing? You're pleading guilty or no contest because you feel it's in your best interest to do so, and there's a factual basis for it. This is kind of all semantics, okay? Now, to Poppy's question, would they want to do that in this case? I don't think Harvey or Wendi really give a hoot about what kind of a plea they take. Alford plea, no contest plea, whatever it is. They just care about what kind of prison time we're talking about. I mean, if Wendi gets offered decades in prison, we're going to be looking at a trial. But if Wendi or Harvey is offered something less than that, something, without custody time or something with a minimal amount of custody time, and they can read the writing on the wall and know that if they go to trial, they're going down for something far worse, given the track record that the prosecutors have, I don't think they really care, Alford plea or otherwise. I think that their biggest motivation is going to be, I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my life. And it's interesting too, because if they're both charged with the same thing, and again, there's a lot of speculation here, and I'll just say that up front. We don't know. There's been no leaks from the government saying that they intend to do any of this, but it will be interesting if they both get charged with conspiracy. There's kind of different compelling positions given their respective ages as to what kind of time they might be willing to accept. I mean, 5 years prison means something very different to Wendi than it does to Harvey, I imagine, if you can do the math that I'm doing in my head. That is such a sinister look on that man's face right there. He looks like a scary dude. Anyhow, Poppy, excellent question. And thank you for bringing up Alford plea. And thank you for being a part of the Courtroom Confidential community that is the smartest community on YouTube. So says I. Write it down. All right. Let's keep it moving here. Oh, God. I'm all upside down today. Here we go.
Hi, everybody. It's Lisa Shelton, aka Bluebird 711. I have two questions that are burning my mind. The first is about Bryan, Kohberger, and Stephan Stines. I know that inmates are allowed to help with their trials or their cases. And what really concerned me about this, I didn't know if it made a difference because they've already pled guilty, but would they be able to access the photos of their crimes? This just sits really raw with me, considering how that might be exactly what they want. My second question concerns the corn rake murder. Todd Mullins was convicted of killing his wife Amy with a corn rake, and I watched the post-conviction relief hearing that ended in March. I really liked the judge. It was very interesting to watch. And I feel like we were supposed to get a result sometime in April, but one still has not come. how long does the judge have to make a decision like this? Do you have any assumptions as to why it's taking so long? Is this normal? Have you ever seen anything like this? I appreciate your input. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day. Love you, crew.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Appreciate that question. Brooklyn Janet, appreciate you with the super chat, says, I love seeing you at CrimeCon. Oh, thank you so much for stopping by. It was a pleasure to everybody who was able to stop by. Was so wonderful and so kind and such a wonderful, heartwarming and invigorating experience for us. So thank you guys. It was really a treat for us to be at CrimeCon and meet many of you and meet many new people too. And I hope some of you are in the chat this morning. Lisa. Oh, Crazy Mom RN, thank you for gifting the membership. Appreciate that. Lisa from, I don't know if you told us, but I know where you're from. You're from Waddy, Kentucky. So let's go ahead and put that on the map. Excellent questions. So this is funny because this is something I haven't really thought about all that much. But Bryan Kohberger, she mentions, Stephan Stearns, she mentions. You could apply this to a lot of cases that we follow where there's horrific crimes that can have been committed and likely horrific photographs taken by investigators that are in evidence. And she wants to know, do they have access to this stuff? I mean, especially when we're talking about Stephan Stearns, we know that there's a lot of child pornography involved in this whole thing. Does Stephan Stearns have access to that because it's part of evidence? Does Bryan Kohberger have access to a bunch of bloody photographs because it's part of evidence? And again, to acknowledge those who lost their lives in that case: Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Here's the answer. And again, it's something I hadn't thought about all that much. First of all, they are constitutionally entitled to see the evidence against them. Okay. So their attorneys, for sure, have access to everything. There's never a point where the prosecution goes, well, this is a little too graphic, or this is illegal contraband, so we're not turning it over to the defense. That's not how it works. They have to provide them with everything. But it becomes a little bit of a different question as to what is provided to the defendant in custody. And that a lot of that has to do with where they're being held. Sometimes they don't get anything physical. They're entitled to review it with their attorneys. So their attorneys have to meet with them for them to review some of these documents. Some documents they are provided. They might get unstapled copies of police reports and things like that. But when it comes down to photographs, especially of a graphic nature, especially things that might be considered contraband, that's not going to be turned over to them. But the next question becomes, will they ever get an opportunity to see it? And they likely do. There's nothing that I could think of that would legally prevent anyone from allowing the defendant who's been charged with a crime to review all of the evidence against them, including contraband, including graphic photographs, in preparation for their case. Doesn't mean they get copies of it. Doesn't mean they get to distribute it throughout the prison, but do they get to see it? It's the evidence against them. Interesting when you really start to think that through. I know that Lisa's question was kind of like, isn't that, kind of furthering the crime? I guess an argument can be made for that, but you also can't deny them their constitutional rights to see all the evidence against them. And then Lisa brings up another case that we have not talked about. I don't think we've ever talked about on this channel. And I know it's a case that some of you followed, and that was the quote unquote corn rake murder. This took place in 2019 in Iowa. The man on the left there is named Todd Mullis, and the woman on the right is his wife, or was his wife, Amy Mullis. In 2019 in Iowa, he was charged with first-degree murder and convicted. And the allegations, according to the prosecution, was that after becoming aware of an affair that she was allegedly involved in, he flew into a rage and took her life. And the mechanism by which he chose to do that was a corn rake. That is a corn rake. I don't know what exactly I had imagined in my head when I thought of a corn rake, but that is gruesome looking thing. And they found her with that object. That is the actual corn rake presented in court during evidence, impaled in her back. Horrible, horrible way for somebody to meet their end. He said his defense was that it was an accident, that she fell backwards onto it and impaled herself. And that was what they stood by, and that's what they went with. One other piece of evidence that was compelling by the prosecution was that and this is kind of cut both ways, but the defense was trying to say, well, listen, he was made aware that his wife was found dead in the barn, I think it was, by one of the sons. He immediately called 911, and he tried to rush her to the hospital to save her life. And those are not the actions of a person who just committed murder. Okay, there's an argument there. I get that. That's certainly something I would argue in court if I were representing someone. But however, one bad fact for them is that during that 911 call, he is apparently repeatedly calling his wife a cheating WHORE. And that is what the prosecution tried to highlight as saying, listen, sure, he called 911, but this is a person who just flew into a rage and killed his wife. But the question before us today that Lisa is asking is, he was convicted. He had a hearing for post-conviction relief, meaning he wants another bite at the apple. He wants a new trial. He wants the judge to overturn the conviction. And this is kind of their first place to do that before they go on to the appellate court. And the arguments being made by the defense were that he had no opportunity to present evidence of it being an accident, or was denied sufficient opportunity to do that, and that the prosecutors withheld evidence. Interesting arguments, compelling arguments, if they have the actual goods to back that all up. The hearing took place back in March, I think it was. The briefs were scheduled to be submitted on April 8th, and I scoured the interwebs and found nothing about any updates since then. And Lisa's question is, how long do these things take? Well, they kind of take as long as the court needs them to take, because we're not dealing with the same speedy trial rights here as we are before trial. They obviously can't drag their feet, but it really kind of depends on the availability of the courts, because the courts who are hearing these kind of post-conviction relief things are not the same trial courts, and they don't have the same calendars. And some of them don't necessarily even sit to consider these matters throughout the year. So it could take a while. So we're in September. I love it that I actually had to check the calendar to see that. We're in September. They expected something to happen quickly, but we're already several months past April. So where does that leave us? I wish I had a better answer for you, Lisa. You asked, have I ever seen that before? I don't do a whole bunch of appellate work, but I will tell you, it takes forever. I've dealt with some cases that we've brought up on appeals or something similar to this, and it does take forever. It just, you talk about the wheels of justice grinding slowly. Well, take a look at how they grind after a conviction. It's just, no one is in a great rush to get it done, but I imagine we will have updates on that case soon enough. And when we do, I will inform you guys of all of it. But interesting case, if you guys want to look into it further. Name is Todd Mullis. He killed his wife, Amy Mullis, out of Iowa. So thanks for that. All right, let's keep it moving here.
Hello, Josh. This is Katie in Nantwich in England. I love your show and your t-shirts. I'm really enjoying the Adelson trial, if that's the right description. And I was just wondering, with your experience of defense, being a defense attorney, what you think of the defense for Donna Adelson. They seem to be somewhat unprepared. They rifle through their papers as if they don't really know what they're going to do next. And I was also wondering if Donna is found guilty, will that affect any future appeals by Charlie? So can the result of one trial influence another trial? My main question, though, is about Wendi, because I really don't understand the concept of this immunity that she has. And I'd really appreciate it if you could explain the circumstances of her immunity and why she's eligible, who requests it, who grants it, what's the ultimate aim of it. And I thought the prosecutor, who I think is fantastic, I thought she was very gentle with her. And is it because she's saving something for later? Thank you.
Katie from Nantwich, England. Thank you so much for calling in and leaving the question. June, hold on a second. June, your generosity is overwhelming and very touching. Thank you so much. 50 Courtroom Confidential memberships. So enjoy, everybody. Everybody's got one now. You get a membership and you get a membership. Thank you so much, June. You're fantastic. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being a part of this community and helping us to grow. And Katie out of Nantwich, England, if you're listening, thank you so much for calling in. Let's put you on the map. There you are. Excellent question. Excellent few questions here. So let's take them all in step. First of all, what did I think of the defense? I try to be deferential on this channel. I don't like throwing people under the bus. I don't like, name calling and everything like that. I will say I was underwhelmed by the defense in this case. Were they unprepared? Were they were they not up to the job? I don't know. I will tell you this, and this is sadly the case. I think that we get a little spoiled sometimes on some of the trials that we watch because and on purpose, I think a lot of these high-profile trials happen to have high-profile attorneys on them, and those are very good attorneys. You're watching some of the best of the best. Go into an average courtroom, and you're not going to see this. And this is kind of what I dealt with most of my career. The defense attorneys, for the most part, that I was up against. Some of them are excellent. Some of the public defenders are excellent, but a lot of them are not that great. Now I am talking trash, but a lot of them are just not all that sparkling. They don't have that, polish that we might see on some of the attorneys that we watch in court. So I think I will say this, I think the thing that I was most rubbed wrong about was not their style, not their presentation, but I felt that they had more arguments to have made. I believe, now that it's post-conviction, I believe Donna Adelson was definitely involved. But I also believe, and can hold these thoughts at the same time in my head, that she had some arguments to make. And that she had some pretty compelling arguments to make. And I don't think the execution of making those arguments entirely happened. There you go. I hope that was diplomatic enough. I'm practicing. Then Katie wants to know, will Donna Adelson's conviction affect the appeals for Charlie Adelson? The answer is no. No. They're going to consider, because what they consider on appeal is the four corners of the trial. They consider the trial transcripts. There's a large process that takes place when you go on appeal, and that is what they call setting the record, where they will take all the transcripts. Both sides get to review the transcripts for accuracy, and then those transcripts are sent to the Court of Appeals. They review all of the documents, all of the evidence that was admitted. Those are agreed upon and sent to the Court of Appeals. But everything outside of that, documents that weren't marked as exhibits or things that were said in court that were not on the record, none of that becomes consideration for the Court of Appeal. And they're only considering very specific questions too. So they might not even be going through the entire trial. They might be just considering some pre-trial evidentiary issue. So the fact that she was convicted played no role in Charlie Adelson's conviction, and therefore they probably are not going to consider it at all. And then finally, Katie wants to know about Wendi Adelson's immunity. And we've talked about this a bit. A lot of people have interest in this. And she wants to know, why was she eligible? Who requests it? What's the point of it? Excellent questions. It's not even a matter of eligibility. It's a matter of whether or not the prosecution wanted to grant it to her for their own purposes. And I've said this before, and I can't say it enough, but this was not a gift for Wendi Adelson. This was a curse. This was an anvil around her neck. She didn't want this. Wendi Adelson would have been more than happy to stand behind her Fifth Amendment protections and say, I'm not getting anywhere near a witness stand. You can't make me. I've got a constitutional right, and I'll refuse to say a gosh darn thing. Have a good day. The prosecution said, not so fast. We want to hear what you have to say. And realizing you have a Fifth Amendment issue, we'll just take care of that through a grant of immunity. She didn't ask for it. She didn't request it. She didn't even want it. And if she could have denied it, she would. But she couldn't. So they granted her use immunity, which solved the issue of her Fifth Amendment protections. So therefore, now she can be compelled to testify. They can subpoena her, drag her ass into court, put her on the stand. And if she tries to say Fifth Amendment, judge is going to say, absolutely not. Answer the questions or I'll find you in contempt. Realizing that, she went ahead and testified under this grant of use immunity. The immunity wasn't to protect her, wasn't to give her some privilege, wasn't to give her some benefit. And it's not even going to help her if they decide to prosecute her. The only thing that it did was allow for her to testify without there being a Fifth Amendment concern. So, great question, Katie. I hope that kind of clears things up for everyone. This was a tool of the prosecution, not some sort of clever thing that was pulled off by her defense team. The only ramifications that we'll have is if they do in fact indict, arrest, and prosecute Wendi, they just cannot use the words that came out of her mouth on the stand against her. They can use all the words she ever said before then. They can use all the words she ever said after then. They can use every action she's ever taken in her entire life. But whatever came out of her mouth on the stand, they cannot use against her. Now, that doesn't mean that she can somehow sanitize things that she had said before by saying them on the stand. It just means they can't use that quote, that transcript from what she said on the stand against her. Excellent question, Katie from Nantwich, England. Hope that clears things up. All right, let's keep it moving here. Thank you again, June. That was so kind of you.
Hi, Joshua, and hi, Courtroom Confidential. So when Georgia asks Wendi, she brings up the topic that, you said many times that you were going to be a suspect. You thought you were a suspect. Were you treated like a suspect? And she says no. And so why would you even consider that? Like, did you know already what happened to Dan? And she's like, no, I didn't know when I was at the dinner. Did you know but I knew when I was in the car, because they told me when I was in the patrol car transporting me to the interview at the station. So when she walks into the station, why would they tell her again? And why would she act like she didn't know and being all like really putting the narrative in by telling that someone left her a voicemail about something happened at Trescott when she already knew? And if they didn't tell her in the car, because then they wouldn't say it again, who told her? Do you think she's lying? This really shocked me, and it shocked Georgia to listen to it. Her answer, and she's quiet, and it's like, oh, let me know what you guys think. Bye.
Aisha from Sweden. Thank you so much. Let's put you on the map. I love your enthusiasm. I feel like when this moment happened in court, I could faintly hear you screaming from Sweden, being so upset by the whole thing. You are not the first person to have identified this issue. This got a lot of people, set a lot of people's hairs on fire when they heard this, because they felt like it was a flat out lie. And I agree. I mean, I've seen the interview. In the interview, she's doing her darndest to say how shocked she was to hear of this horrific news that the father of her children has been killed. That's a thing about this that I feel like is reported. They always kind of talk about Wendi and the murder of her ex-husband. To me, this is the murder of the father of her children. How much more disturbing is that? I mean, listen, the murder of anybody is disturbing, but this woman, if true, according to allegations and evidence, and perhaps even according to an indictment, conspired to kill the man who shares DNA with her own children, the man who forever will now share, her children will forever now be denied their own father. That to me is just so much more evil and disturbing. Anyhow, I don't know how we got on that. How did we make that left turn out of nowhere? I don't know. But was she lying on the stand? And I think she obviously was, especially when it came down to this point. She says that I was told in the car on the way to the station, yet we see her in the interview and she's acting like it's the first time she's ever heard this. So, I mean, one argument can be made by Wendi is that she misremembered. Another argument can be made by the prosecution that she's flat out lying. I guess where I come up on this is I don't know why she's lying. Why would she be saying that? What advantage does that give her to say she was told in the car when we know that she acted like she was hearing it for the first time in the station? And then if she was told in the car, well, then why is she putting on this performance in the station? I don't know. I don't track. It doesn't track for me what advantage this gives to Wendi. But then to Aisha's point is what do we do with this now? What does Kappelman do with it? Well, I think Kappelman handled it perfectly. It was not the time or place to get into impeaching her and everything else. She was trying to use Wendi to her benefit. And in that time, at that point, she needed certain things out of Wendi, and she needed the jury to believe certain things from Wendi because it furthered her prosecution against Donna. So to go on this side quest of impeaching Wendi would have been kind of a waste of time, irrelevant, and not really helpful at that moment. But I'm sure everybody took notes. Now, when can that ever be used? Getting back to the point from our earlier question, it can't unless Wendi takes the stand in her own trial or in a subsequent trial. And then anytime anybody lies, you can use that as impeachment because that doesn't fall under the immunity agreement. If Wendi were to take the stand, by the way, just so you all know, if Wendi's indicted and she takes the stand in her own defense, all bets are off. If she starts telling a different story from what she's testified before, that's not part of that immunity agreement. They can use her prior testimony at that point to impeach her. They're just not using it to pursue a prosecution against her. But that doesn't mean that you then get to testify at a later point and make up an entirely new world and act like everything you ever testified to before is in some sort of lockbox, because it's not. It's just under a very specific immunity agreement. So great question, Aisha. Thank you so much for calling from Sweden. Say hello to all our Swedish friends there. Courtroom Confidential crew in Sweden. All right. Let's keep it rolling here. What am I doing?
Happy Sunday, Fundy, Joshua, Tiffany, Kaylin, Mods, crew, chat, everyone. Felicia K. Mayo in Humboldt, Tennessee. Joshua, let's talk about it. 1967, Pauline Pusser dies after being shot. And in 1974, Sheriff Buford Pusser dies in an automobile accident. They said in 2024 that Pauline's case was still an open case. Recently, they said that they had enough evidence if he were still alive, Buford Pusser would be charged with Miss Pauline's murder. Now, don't get me wrong, and I mean no offense. I know they had their daughter still alive, Miss Donna, and other family members. But what would be the point of investigating two deceased people? Love to hear your answer, Joshua. And by the way, if you won at CrimeCon, massive congratulations. If you did not get chosen to take home the trophy, you're still #1 in our book, Joshua. And hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Bye.
Alicia K. Mayo from Humboldt, Tennessee. Thank you so much for the kind words. No, we did not win in CrimeCon, but that, according to you, then means we're #1 in your book, and that's exactly where we want to be, anyways. We listen. I know a lot of people always say this, but we were just incredibly shocked and honored to be nominated at all. So thank you so much for that. It was a fun experience, nonetheless, and we'll be back. We will be back. Alicia K. Mayo from Humboldt, Tennessee. Oh, I love how you always come with the questions, bringing up some case that I've never heard of in my entire life, and this is another one of them, and I appreciate it. So you are right. We are going back to 1967 out of McNairy County, Tennessee. And there's a gentleman there named Buford Pusser, who was the sheriff at the time, and his wife, Pauline Mullins Pusser. And what happens is he, according to the story, she volunteered to go with him on a ride-along in his patrol vehicle late at night. And they get a call of a disturbance. This is according to him, obviously. Call of a disturbance. They pull the car over at one point, the patrol vehicle, and they're ambushed by an unknown assailant who shoots several times into the vehicle and ends up killing Pauline. And that's the way it was. And that's basically where the investigation ended. Unsolved mystery. Buford actually dies in 1974. So he's no longer with us. So to Alicia K. Mayo's point, why are they still investigating this? Because they are. Because recently, the DA in that county, DA Mark Davidson, came out with some comments, and he said that there were inconsistencies in Buford Pusser's statements to law enforcement and to others, and that the physical, medical, forensic, ballistic, and reenactment evidence suggests that she was not shot inside that vehicle, suggests that she was shot outside of the vehicle and then placed inside of the vehicle to stage it to look like an ambush. And therefore, they believe that Buford is in fact the person responsible for his wife's death. Fascinating stuff this many years later. But Alicia says, in all due respect, why are they investigating this when the man's dead? Well, the reason they are is because it was a quote unquote cold case, unsolved mystery. They're looking into their cold cases. This is a no suspect case. Now, it just happens that evidence in reviewing their cold cases happens to lead them back to the husband who's now dead, and not to someone else. So good on them, and congratulations for them for pursuing their cold cases, even those from 1967. And bringing a little bit of closure, perhaps, to not closure, I hate to use that word, but a little bit of understanding as to what may have happened, so that now they're not looking for some unknown suspect. They know who at least police believe was involved, even these many years later. Interesting kind of side note about this case is it inspired a movie. Now, you realize that at the time, he was believed to be innocent and out on the hunt for the man who, the assailant that took his wife's life. Kind of a hero. So in 1973, what's the name of this actor? I forgot the name of this actor. Really, really good actor back in the day. In 1973, they come out with a movie called Walking Tall about this story, loosely based on the whole story. And the hero there with the 2x4 in his hand is supposed to be Buford, you know, on the hunt for his wife's killer. Joe Don Baker. Thank you so much, Granny Detective. Look at you. Look at that. I didn't even realize you have that cool logo there. I like that. Solving yet another case. Who is that actor? So Joe Don Baker stars in that. And then it was so good that they remade it in 2004. And I know this guy's name, with The Rock. What I love about that is they remade it and obviously added far more explosions this time around. But again, loosely based on kind of this vigilante going to avenge his wife's murder. And now we're finding out that in fact the guy did it. So we'll see if they remake it one more time to correct the record on all of that. But thank you so much, Alicia K. Mayo, for the question. And thank you again always for calling in. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hello, Joshua. This is Gloria from Florida. Do you think that the amazing defense team that Karen Reed had could have done anything better in the defense of Donna Adelson? Question mark. Probably by the time this airs, Donna's trial will be over, but it just seems like her defense is kind of making things up on the fly. They hardly made any objections when the prosecution was speaking, and now the prosecution is making all kinds of objections when they're presenting their case. I just wondered, it just occurred to me that someone else might have done something better for Donna. She might have been better off with public defenders who were used to working together better. Okay, I was just wondering. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Gloria, calling from Florida. Let's put you on the map. Thank you so much for the question. There you are. There's Florida, the entire state. We don't know where you're from, but we're going to declare you as part of that whole state. And thank you so much for calling in. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but here's a truth that I wish was not so true, but it's kind of what I base my current profession on. You would hope that in a perfect world, the evidence would shine through, and that if a person were not guilty of something, the evidence would bear that out in a trial. And if that a person were guilty of something, the evidence would do the same, bear itself out in a trial, and that it wouldn't really be all that dependent on remarkable prosecutors, or in this case, remarkable defense attorneys. You guys have been watching this long enough to know that's not true. There is a big difference between a very good prosecutor and a very poor prosecutor. We've seen that. And there's a big difference between very poor defense attorneys and very good defense attorneys. And Gloria wants to know, well, let's say Donna didn't have the team she had. Let's say she had a team like Karen Reed had. And could things have turned out differently for her? As good as Karen Reed's team was, I personally feel probably no. But I do feel that there are some cases that it can have an effect. That the defense team absolutely has an effect. I mean, like I said, I base my profession on that. I base my why people hire me now is that they feel that I'm better than the alternative. Is that they feel that they're just going to get more attentiveness, more professionalism, more experience, and a better advocate in court. And those things absolutely can have an effect. I don't think they can undo evidence. And I don't think they could have undone evidence in Karen Reed's case, or pardon me, in Donna Adelson's case. But I think that she would have had a better shot. I mean, maybe a hung jury, perhaps they would have convinced a juror or two or something like that. But I feel like at least this case was not so close that the evidence would have not have shined through no matter who was representing her. So great question, Gloria. Appreciate you asking that and getting us thinking about that topic. All right. keep it rolling here. Did I miss any comments, by the way, Tiffany? I know I'm kind of breezing through. Ali became gifted a membership. Appreciate you, Ali. Thank you so much. All right. Here we go. Not my fault. Computer glitch. Had to reload. Hold on.
Hi, Josh. This is Deborah Harris NJ, calling from Southampton in the UK. I hope you're good. I'm not aware of any limits on how many questions that I can be asked, so here we go. My first two questions are in relation to Donna Adelson. Can the defense team appeal the verdict based on Judge Everett not allowing her the time she said she needed to make the decision on whether to testify or not? I believe she did have enough time myself, but should he just have given her the extra time she needed? What would it hurt? The second question is, what is the point of a pre-sentence report? How would this affect her sentence, bearing in mind that she was found guilty on all 3 counts? And from what I understand, the first-degree murder count is a mandatory life sentence. My third question is, sorry about this, I've always wondered how lawyers go from being prosecutors to defense lawyers. You're prosecuting the bad guy for years, and then you're defending them. I know that's the job, but isn't it a bit of a transition for your mind to get round? And this is the very last question, I promise. Would you ever consider reviewing criminal cases outside of the USA? I hope you get to some of my questions, but we'll understand if you don't. Thanks. Bye.
Deborah from Southampton, England. That was impressive. I like that. Just pumping out the questions there. Thank you so much. Let's put you on the map. There's Southampton. Thank you for calling in. Great questions. Let's get to you. You were so efficient. We're going to get to all of them. First of all, talking about Donna Adelson again. Deborah wants to know, can an appeal be based upon the judge denying her time to decide to testify? The answer to that is yes. But the better question is, will that appeal be successful? And I think the answer to that is no. Whenever we're talking about can they appeal, the can is the far lesser question. You can appeal based on a bunch of different stuff. It's just a matter of typing it out and sending it in an envelope and saying, we want to appeal based on such and such. And you can identify all sorts of issues, and the court can say all of these are nonsense, and we're not even going to grant you oral arguments on any of this. We're just going to deny your appeal. That happens, by the way. When many times when things are appealed, they may not even get a day in court. It may be that the court says we've reviewed it and denied it. One paragraph you'll get back, denied, essentially. And that's it. End of the road for you. If you want to try to appeal it up to the circuit court or to the Supreme Court, have at it. But you've been denied at your first bite at the apple. And they don't necessarily need to write some sort of brief and treatise to explain that to you. And they don't even need to give you a day in court to argue anything. So can they appeal based upon that? Yes. Will they appeal based upon that? I think absolutely. I think they made a lot of what you see happening in court is trial attorneys making the record for appealable issues. They want that. You can't appeal something that's not on the record. For what we talked about before, that's all the appellate courts will review. So you have to put this stuff on the record. You have to make an issue of it. If you don't make an issue of it at the time, there's nothing for the Court of Appeal to review. You cannot, if this was all an internal conversation that Donna had with her attorneys about whether or not she wanted to testify, and they don't feel they have enough time and she wants more time, and they never brought that up to the judge and never put it on the record, they would have nothing to appeal. But they did bring it up, and she did put it on the record. Now, is it an issue? Yes. Will they make it an issue on appeal? Yes. Will they be granted a new trial based upon that? I think highly unlikely that that will happen, because this guy right here, this judge who I love, who I wish they would make like some sort of stuffy or bobblehead or something of him that I could have on my desk, because I love the guy. I think he did an excellent job of handling that, because he didn't outright say no. He said, you've had time. What have you been talking about for the months leading up to this and for the days that we've been having this trial? And then he said, fine, I'll give you time. Well, you don't need days to discuss that issue. You go back and you talk to your attorneys. In fact, he gave her a couple of opportunities to talk. And eventually he said, now is the time. The train is leaving the station. You need to make a decision. I don't think there's an appellate court in the land that will see that anything that he did was inappropriate or somehow denied her due process, and will grant an appeal based upon that. I really, really don't. And I think there's probably case law out there to support all of that. Great question. Question number 2. What is the purpose of a pre-sentence report? Again, we have the smartest audience in the entire YouTube universe. A pre-sentence report is usually prepared by the Department of Probation or the Department of Corrections. It is a report that does a risk assessment of the defendant. It interviews the defendant sometimes. It interviews victims. And it basically provides the judge with a more holistic understanding of who this person is that they're about to sentence. It plays a role too for the Department of Corrections so that they know who they're getting. What level of what level of custody should this person be under? Are they going to be in a supermax, or are they going to be in a low low kind of security holding? In cases like Donna Adelson's, where the sentence is essentially predetermined, it doesn't play all that much of a role in sentencing. But in some cases, the vast majority of cases, which are not like Donna Adelson's, where there is a wide range for the judge to consider as far as sentencing, it can play an important role to just giving the judge a better understanding of who this person is that they're about to sentence. And they will even give recommendations in many of these reports. So great question again, Deborah. Question number 3, how do you go from prosecutor to defense attorney? I get asked this a lot. I think of myself first and foremost as a lawyer and as an advocate. And when I was a prosecutor, my client was the people of the state of California, and I was a zealous advocate on their behalf. And when I left the office to go into private practice, I became a person who represented individual clients, and I advocated zealously on their behalves. Was there an ethical conundrum that took place in my head before leaving the office? Absolutely. I loved being a prosecutor. I felt it was the best job in the world. I loved getting up every day and feeling like I'm doing the right thing. So I struggled a lot with the idea of, how can you go represent those people? But I quickly became disabused of that and realized that many of my clients are very, very good people. They just happen to have made a mistake, whether that is they drank a little too much, got a little sloppy with their taxes, made some sort of stupid error that is an anomaly in their life, but doesn't make them a bad person. Those people get arrested too, and they need representation. I am privileged enough to be a private attorney, and I can turn down some cases I just don't want to deal with. And not to be so kind of crass about it, but just, a lot of the people who are committing really, really horrible crimes can't afford private attorneys many times. So I don't even get those phone calls. But I enjoy what I do now just as much, and I have a lot of fulfillment in doing that. So thank you for asking that. And finally, Deborah says, would you cover cases outside the U.S.? Yes, we absolutely would. In fact, yes, we do. When they come up on our radar. So I invite all of you in our international community, if you've got an interesting case that you feel like we want take a look at, let us know. I mean, we've covered cases out of Australia and out of South Africa and out of Europe, and many people have put some stuff on our radar. It's just that when we're sitting down trying to review what's going on, a lot of the stuff that coming up is out of the United States. And I will say too, a lot of that is the function of the U.S. system being so open to cameras too. A lot of these cases are cases that are going to have cameras in the courtroom. So that's where a lot of our cases come from. But there are many fascinating cases that you guys bring up a lot on this show. And if you got more of them, please let us know. If you are guilty, you need a lawyer. But if you are innocent, you really, really need an attorney. It's true. It's very true. Is that the difference between an attorney? Oh no, if you need an attorney. Yeah, I would say that's a very good statement. Whoever said that sounds like they were a brilliant man. All right. Thank you so much, Deborah, for the excellent questions from representing Southampton. Am I saying that right? Yeah, Southampton. All right, let's keep it moving here.
Hi, Josh. This is Lou in Dallas, Texas. My first question is, do you think when Rob Adelson testified and said that Donna told him the killers knocked on the door and Dan answered and they asked, "Are you Dan Markell?" and he was shot then? Do you believe that that may have been their original plan? I think because Dan drove in the garage and was on the phone, the killers adjusted the plan and shot him then. Secondly, did you and everyone else notice that when the verdict was read, Donna was able to hear without her headphones? She heard everything that Judge Everett said, and she heard everything that Ruth and Phil Markell said because she kept vehemently shaking her head no on all the zingers when they told the truth of all the terrible things she's done. Thanks.
Thank you, Lou from Dallas, Texas. Let's put Dallas on the map. I'm trying to think if is this our first caller from Dallas itself? I think we've had plenty of people from Texas, but I can't remember a Dallas call before. But thank you so much, Lou, for calling in. This is very clever. Again, we've got the smartest audience on YouTube. This is something that many people pointed out, but I love Lou's take on this. Donna tells Rob, and Rob testifies to this, that they knocked on the door and asked if it was Dan Markell and then shot him dead. And that is how she is telling Rob what took place. And Rob tells the court this is what he was told by his own mother. And many people have pointed out, well, how would she know that? Where would she get that information from? Dan's dead. The killers are apparently unknown to her and on the lam. How would she possibly know this information? That was an excellent point. Lou kind of takes this a step further and says, well, did she know it because that was the plan and it didn't turn out to be true? In other words, is she telling Rob what she believed happened, not actually what did happen, because the shooters likely did not report back to Donna. I don't know if the details of what took place was reported back up the chain. It might have just been as something as job done. And that goes from Garcia and Rivera to McBanois, job done. And for this horrific game of telephone, McBanois just reports to Charlie, job done. And Charlie just lets Donna know, job done. And it's not, well, we were going to knock on the door and then he wasn't at the door. But when we pulled up, he was actually sitting outside. And so then we came up and we got him before he even got out of the car, but we knew it was him because we've been following it. Maybe they didn't get all of those details. Gisela, so good to see you. Rob's testimony was powerful. It was powerful. It was, to me, the turning point in the entire trial. It really was the heart of that entire trial. There was plenty of other evidence and evidence that connected her to the crime probably more directly, but that was really the heart and soul of that whole trial. And good to see you, Gisela. I hope, are you post or pre-jog this morning? So excellent question. And I think that's a very keen insight, Lou, that it probably was the plan. She probably knew far more about the plan than we know, including the plan was go knock on the door, ask if you're Dan, shoot him dead. And that's why she told Rob that's what took place, because she believed that's what took place, because she didn't know any different. And then, yeah, all of a sudden, miracle of miracles, her hearing has been restored to her in court when they're reading the verdict, and she can hear everything as clear as a bell when she's reacting to it. So, yeah, of all the things that this woman is guilty of and all the horrible things she's done in her life, being less than truthful about her hearing is probably not going to make the list, but excellent observation, Lou. All right. Let's keep it moving here. Oops. What am I doing? All right.
Hi, Josh. This is Pam from Michigan. I have 2 quick questions, hopefully. First question is for Donna on appeal. Are there any appeal options because of her defense team being less than stellar? I thought they could have done things a few ways different. I thought they could have objected on a few different things, and wondering if the option to ask Judge Everett to give her overnight to think about whether she wanted to take the stand in her own defense. Maybe they should have done that. I'm not sure if it would have made a difference, but just, wondering that. And then the other question is for Wendi. Will the prosecution take into account her boys? Where are they going to go? Who's going to take care of them? Everyone, of course, feels that Dan's parents and sister would probably be the best option. But of course, I don't think they know them very well. And Wendi is still their mother. So she probably has a lot more choice in the matter of where they would go. Just wondering what your thoughts were. Hopefully you found your passport. Can't wait for Sunday. Talk soon. Bye.
Pam from Michigan, always great to hear from you. Thank you so much. Putting you on the map, putting Michigan on the map. Another reason I really appreciate this community of ours is that we've had so many questions today about what could Donna's defense team have done to be better. And I appreciate that because we realize this is about justice being done the right way. And we don't just want to see some person. And even though I think everybody here likely had their feelings on Donna's guilt and likely believed that she was very much involved in this horrific assassination, but that doesn't mean that we want her to head to court with some awful representation and things are not done the right way. Part of the proper service of justice has to do with excellent advocacy on both sides. And so when we don't see that, we want to know why and could things have been done differently, even though I think, I'm not going to speak for Pam, but I imagine she feels she still was happy with the outcome. We just want to make sure that the way we get there was the right way. So thank you again. What do they have as options on appeal? And we talked about this a little bit before. They're going to come up with everything. I mean, when you're doing an appeal, it's kind of the kitchen sink approach. You try to think of everything because you never know what is the Court of Appeals going to bite into. What are they going to feel is the more convincing argument? You may feel like, hey, I've got a great argument for ineffective assistance of counsel here. And if you only go with that and you ignore the other stuff, they may outright dismiss that and have had more inclination to go with other arguments. So you throw everything at them. So again, it comes down to a question of not so much can they, but what will be persuasive. I think they can, and I think they will, because it's part of nearly every appeal, bring a IAC or ineffective assistance of counsel argument, not entirely based upon the efficacy of the attorneys, but more based upon their lack of ability to prepare because they've asked for more time and were not granted more time. They came in late to the game because they were the attorneys that came in after the Rashbaum was summarily excused. So they can make an argument. The judge didn't give us enough time, and therefore that led to ineffective assistance of counsel. They could say that she was rushed to make a decision about testifying. We've already talked about that a little bit. There was also many things that they brought up during the trial. I remember there was a big kind of to-do about the hearsay elements of certain emails between Donna and Wendi coming into evidence. All of that is going to become issues on appeal. But I cannot, as I sit here right now, think of one thing that is making me nervous. There's not one thing that's making me kind of, rub my palms together in anticipation. I feel, and again, all credit goes to Judge Everett. He did a remarkable job. That's the judge's job, by the way, is to just make sure that this case gets to verdict, and a verdict that will stand up on appeal. So again, kudos to him. And thank you, Pam, for the question. And thank you for calling in. All right. Let's keep it moving here.
Hi, Josh. This is Ella Leilani, also known as One Love. Okay, so something that really galls me is when judges and DAs, might as well throw CPS workers in there, when they fail to do their due diligence, and by not doing so, someone innocent ends up dead. What I want to know is there any kind of recourse that the public can take to make these judges do their darn jobs? Say, for example, Judge Cool. Say, for example, oh crap, I forgot the thing. There was another case that came up where a judge just failed to do anything, and I believe a child lost their life. Anyways, what kind of recourse is there for these people who are literally culpable for someone's death because they didn't do their job? So I'm curious to know that. I appreciate you. Gosh, I really love your channel. You're just doing so great. So proud of you. Thank you. And I think I said I'm from Chilingua, Texas. I can't remember, but tiny little town on the border. Okay, thanks. Love to you all.
Ayla Landlani, thank you so much for calling in. And I messed up. I didn't hear that you gave your location. And I thought that you gave no location, but I can already tell that we have the most brilliant map director in all the land, and that Kaylin is going to put you on the map anyways. Did you find that quickly? Oh, well, you found Texas, which is good enough for me. Chilingua, Texas. So disappointed I missed that. I even put in my little notes here, no location, and I was going to give you a finger wagging to tell you, let us know where you're from, but you did. So bad on me. We will find that. We will find that, and we will put you on the map so that you don't miss out. But she said along the border, I think she said. Thank you. A little town along the border. That's where you're calling from. Excellent question, though. And thank you, Anna Lee Finch, for the super chat. Welcome back from CrimeCon. It's good to be back. Even though I'm hopping on a plane later today, and I'll tell you guys about that more later. But Ayla brings up some interesting and heartbreaking in some situations, devastating in others, question that comes up quite a bit. What is the recourse when it looks like somebody really messed up, really dropped the ball, especially judges? She highlighted the Emmanuel Haro case. We're going to get into that, about his father having been convicted of a prior abuse of a child, and why that should have probably landed him in prison instead of allowed him to be out and harm and kill another child, allegedly. I think of the case of out of Charlotte, North Carolina, with DeCarlos Brown and the savage murder of Irina Zarutska that we've all been talking about on the news. This beautiful young girl, she's a refugee from Ukraine. It just, the heartbreakingness of the whole thing, that she leaves her war-torn, bombed-out country to come to America to find a better life and to find safety. And instead she ends up on a commuter train and is savagely stabbed to death by a man that likely should not have been out of custody also. In that case, he had been arrested 14 times prior and a demonstrated history of mental illness. And the judge, for his last arrest, gives him a notice to appear, meaning basically, show up, please, at this next court date. Have a nice life in the meantime. Just unforgivable to me, because part of what judges should be doing is ensuring the safety of the public. And that is, talk about dropping the ball. That is about as horrific as it gets. And then she talks about, she mentions at least references Emmanuel Haro. Jake Haro, just to fill you in on why we're so upset about the whole thing. He had a case from 2018. He pled in 2023. He received a 6-year suspended sentence. In other words, he did not go to prison. He got probation and work release. And that was it. Why is that so horrific? Well, because what he had done back in 2018 was enough to render his infant from another marriage bedridden with permanent injuries that she deals with to this day. Fractured ribs, fractured skull, and a brain hemorrhage. I'm going to say that again. An infant had fractured ribs, a fractured skull, and a brain hemorrhage. And the judge gave that person probation. Over objections from the prosecution, by the way. Unforgivable to me. If you've been watching me long enough, you know I really do my best to not criticize judges in particular, because I feel that there should be a respect for the bench and for the court, and that when we start tearing that down, we really start to have problems with questioning the entire integrity of the judicial system. But I'm going to call it when I see it. And this to me is unforgivable. A person, especially over the objections of the prosecution, is saying, Your Honor, don't do this. And the judge says, for whatever reason, efficiency, long docket, whatever it is, had a bad morning that day, I'm going to give this person probation who rendered their infant bedridden with permanent disabilities. That's prison. That person goes to prison. And had he been in prison, then there's a good chance that Emmanuel would be still with us today. But a lot of blame, I think, could be placed at the feet of that judge. So to Ayla's question, what do you do? What happens to this judge? Unfortunately, not a whole lot. And that's a kind of a problem with our system. Judges, to some extent, you want them insulated. You want judges free from political and outside pressure to make tough decisions, right? We certainly don't want a situation where judges are in constant fear of losing their jobs or of political ramifications because they have to make difficult decisions in court. But when those decisions are so in contrast to the law, in contrast to public safety, shouldn't something be done? And I would hope so, yes. The answer is very little, unless you just want to run against that judge. And that's basically what it comes down to. Judges come up for election ever so many years. And if you feel you've got a judge, run someone against them and get them out, because that's really the only way to get rid of them. Short of them committing a crime, short of them committing some sort of ethical violation, abusive of, they lie on the bench. There's really very little way to get rid of these judges, which is a sad side effect, though rare, but side effect of the way that our system works. So thank you, Ayla, for getting me all heated this morning, which I am. All right, let's move it along here to our next. Oh, is that it? What is the name of the town again? No, I forgot. But you found it. I love it. Well, we put you on the map. And you're right along the border there. So never too late. Appreciate that, Kaylin. Look at Kaylin. Matt, maybe I don't even need to give you these ahead of time. You could just find them on the fly now. Is that how we should do it? Oh, there we go. Terlingua, Texas, says Tiff Knox. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we were able to We almost had a tragedy there. I'm glad we were able to recover. All right. And Bluebird just became a member because we did that. She said, you know what? You guys go above and beyond. I'm going to go ahead and become a member. Well, thank you, Bluebird. All right. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Joshua. Joe Schmo from West Lafayette, Indiana. It was so great to meet you in person at CrimeCon. Thank you for spotting me and stopping by to say hi. I'm glad I wore my Atlanta Braves jersey with my name on the back because you found me before I found you wandering around with your adorable little entourage. But what a great weekend. I met so many people. I made new friends, new connections. I learned a lot. It was not at all what I expected it to be, but in a very good way. My favorite part, aside from the personal interactions with people that I admire and respect, such as yourself, was being able to ask questions at the end of sessions. I positioned myself for a couple of them as close to the microphone as I could get without being a VIP for Delphi and Daybell sessions, and I was able to get in a question for each of those. I also asked one at the end of the Othram Idaho 4 session, which was very educational. Anyway, it was a phenomenal weekend. I'm already signed up for CrimeCon 2026. I'm going to Vegas, baby. P.S. Did you find your jacket with your passport stuffed into one of your bags somewhere when you got home? I sure hope so. Anyway, happy Sunday, fun day, everybody. Take care. We'll see you at CrimeCon 2026 in Vegas.
Joe Schmo, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Schmo, a friend of the show. Good to see you. It was fun to run into you. We were walking along on the convention floor. Let me put you on the map, first of all. West Lafayette, Indiana. One of our dudes representing the Courtroom Confidential dudes. We're walking along, and we see this gentleman with a Braves jersey, and right on the back it says Joe Schmo, and Tiffany goes, Joe Schmo, and he turns around, and we were able to meet and shake hands and take this picture, and he's a fantastic guy, and I'm so glad that we got to run into him, and we got to run into many of you that way. So we really, really enjoyed the experience out in CrimeCon. It's going to be in Vegas next year during May. We're going to be there for sure. We've already purchased our tickets. We're already got plans for what we're going to do with our booth and other fun stuff that we hope to do while we're out there. And we hope that, you know, maybe we can see some more of you and see the same crew from last time and add on to that this coming time. So thank you so much for that. Again, I don't get any piece of this whole CrimeCon thing. I just love it. I think it's a great thing that the community puts on. If you are into true crime and you're following this and you're following our channel and you're participating in all of it, if you have the means, and I know that's not a small thing, but if you have the means, check it out one time at least. It's worth it, and it's a fun environment just to kind of lay eyes on and take pictures with some of these folks that you've been chatting with for so many years. Joe, I did find my passport. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was the one downside of the whole weekend is that as we're packing up to go to the airport, I turned to Tiffany and I go, do you know where my black jacket is? And she's like busy packing up. And she goes, I don't know. It's probably in the closet. And I go look in the closet and it's not in the closet. And I go, sweetheart, I need my black jacket. And she's like, I don't know. We'll find it. And I go, my passport's in my black jacket. And then she stops dead in her tracks, realizing I probably cannot get back onto the plane without it. Drama, us searching all around the hotel, yelling at security people, go find it. Where is it? Going back to the CrimeCon floor, looking for it there. Couldn't find it. Tiffany has to go with our 1-year-old and all of our bags to the airport all by herself. She's a champ, and she deserves a round of applause for that. While I was still searching for the passport, and then I hop in a cab, get to the airport just in time to get onto the plane, and I beg my way onto the plane through security, and they were kind enough to let me on. We get back to LA, still don't know what's happening with it. I'm sick to my stomach. I'm sick to my stomach that I'm thinking I have to deal with getting a new passport, and that ain't easy. Tiffany says, I'm going to call the hotel one more time. And she does, and they go, oh, yeah, we've got a passport here. We've got a black jacket along with it. Would you like us to return that to you? And After we got done crying, we said, yes, absolutely. And they FedExed it out to us. So I do now have my passport again. Some kind person, I think, just found it. I think I left it in the convention area, and some very kind-hearted person turned it into lost and found, and just somehow it got lost in the mix. But I've got it back. And whoever you are, thank you. Thank you for not stealing my passport and my jacket. Probably didn't fit you anyways, but I've got everything back. So thank you, Joe, for that. All right, let's keep it moving here.
Hi, Josh. It's Granny Detective from Calgary calling. And my question goes to, based on the fact that we have heard from 3 of the jurors in the Donna Adelson trial, and they've all talked about how impactful Rob was in making the verdict of guilty so much easier in Donna Adelson's trial, would Georgia Kappelman be able to call Rob as a witness in Wendi's trial should she be indicted and go on trial? Or could Rob just simply say, I'm done and I don't want to do that? And if that's the case, could his testimony be used in any way in Wendi's trial? Anyway, look forward to possibly hearing an answer. And love the show, and glad we're all back on schedule now after CrimeCon, and I'm really glad you found your passport. Bye for now.
Did she leave that message just now after hearing that I got my passport back? Granny Detective, so good to hear from you. Putting Calgary, Alberta, Canada on the map. Thank you for the kind wishes about the passport. Oh, I felt like such a dummy too. Yeah, I just hate those types of things. When I do something as important as that, and I'm usually very, very OCD when it comes to like making sure I've got all my stuff together, and to have lost my passport, I just was really kicking myself. And again, thank you, Tiffany, for being such a gem and just taking care of everything else so I could try to search for it. She was not too pleased with Mr. Ritter showing up to the airport with an infant and a bunch of bags, but she handled it like a champ. Yes, CrimeCon tickets go on sale tomorrow, by the way. Thank you, Sneemat, for reminding everybody. Early bird special goes on tomorrow for CrimeCon. And Granny Detective, there you are. Thank you so much. Love to all. Let's get to your question then. Rob Adelson, like I said, if you had to ask me what was the most important evidence as far as Donna's guilt, probably not going to be Rob. But if you ask me what was the most important evidence as far as to its persuasiveness, to the emotional compass of the jury, I would absolutely say it was Rob. To me, when he took the stand, that was a sea change in the way the whole trial was taking place. And Granny Detective's question is, will they call him as a witness in Wendi's trial, and for what purpose? And I think they will absolutely call him as a witness. He testified, one, about how the family was not curious as to who killed Dan. I mean, that's a big part to me. That was something that really resonated with me. I mean, again, does that make a person guilty of murder? No. But is that something that sticks in your head? Nobody's curious. Nobody wants to know who murdered a family member in the middle of, without any kind of apparent reason for it. This is not a car accident. This is not a robbery gone wrong. This is an assassination, and nobody's curious. Somebody gets arrested. They don't want to talk about it. That's hugely impactful evidence. And I think they will absolutely call him for that. Plus, he's the one that kind of talks about how Wendi told him that she was involved in this other relationship. He's obviously had conversations with her. I think he provides a bunch of insights, and he fills in the story. Sometimes you call witnesses to fill in the story. Sometimes you call witnesses so that jurors aren't wondering, why didn't we hear from that person? This is the last honest Adelson on earth. And I think jurors are entitled to hear from him. I absolutely believe he will be on the witness list if Wendi is ever, in fact, indicted. So thank you for that, Granny Detective. Excellent questions. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hi everyone, this is Sneemac from Alexandria, Virginia. This question was inspired by the discussion of the Mickey Stein case with Gavin Fish. He said something to the effect of, are the attorneys seeking justice or are they just seeking a win? And that got me thinking about the latest forum or judge shopping indictments that are occurring at the federal level. Out of law school, my husband did 2 federal clerkships with the 11th Circuit in Alabama. And one of the judges he clerked for, the district judge, was pretty liberal compared to the rest of the 11th Circuit. So he had a very unique docket. So I've seen forum shopping firsthand, and I know it's been common for as long as I've been alive. I was just wondering, without getting too political, what you think of the efforts now to limit that at the federal level, and whether it's a broader issue, whether judge shopping takes place even to some extent at the county level. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Sneemac, so good to hear from you from Alexandria, Virginia. Let's put you on the map there. And by the way, what a pleasure to run into you at CrimeCon. That was so such a treat for us to run into you, and I'm so glad that we were able to take a photo and everything else. Excellent question, and impressive, by the way, your husband's credentials. Again, we have the smartest audience on YouTube. Who else find me right now on YouTube? Anybody else talking about forum shopping? I defy you. But excellent question. So what is forum shopping, Sneemac? Well, it is the idea of filing a case by either the plaintiffs or the plaintiffs or the prosecution to put it in front of a judge or jurisdiction that you feel will be more friendly to your cause. And as I explain that, you can, of course, see the problems with it and why we should try to avoid it, because justice should be justice, and you shouldn't be able to handpick your judge because you feel that judge might be more favorable to your cause. Here's the problems with it and why they're trying to restrict it, though. Jurisdiction geographically can be established through either where the defendant, the person you're suing or the person you're prosecuting, either lives, that establishes jurisdiction, or where the crime took place. Well, you can see where in situations where you might be talking about a wide-ranging crime or civil complaint, that would open up a lot of different places. If you can claim that somehow you've been civilly wronged and that influenced the business in Vermont, but the defendant resides in Los Angeles, there's an argument to be made. You can sue that person in Vermont because that's where you're trying to establish jurisdiction. And we've seen this happen. You may have heard of the case of Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. Well, her civil rights suit against Baldoni was filed in California because they felt that the California civil rights laws are favorable to them, whereas her sexual harassment suit was filed against him in New York. Well, hey, where did this take place? Where does Baldoni live? Where was the movie filmed? Where did the alleged sexual harassment take place? Where did the alleged civil rights take place? Well, there you have arguments to say that it's the release of a film. There were things that took place in different jurisdictions, and they've been able to establish. Now, why are they doing that? Well, they're trying to find their forum shopping. They're trying to find favorable jurisdictions to their cause, and that's why they do this. And this happens all the time. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, 2 actors from Hollywood who were living in Los Angeles during the alleged incidents. because it was a defamation suit, they were able to sue in Virginia, of all places, because the journal in which she published her defamatory remarks happened to have a publishing operation out of Virginia. Why did they want to go all the way out there for this? Because the anti-SLAPP laws in Virginia are far less onerous than the anti-SLAPP laws in California, and they were concerned that had they brought the suit in California, it might have gotten kicked out because of those anti-SLAPP laws. So a lot of this is clever, and a lot of this leads to very bizarre results where you've got these two Hollywood actors showing up to Virginia to litigate this thing. And they're talking about a bunch of stuff that took place in downtown Los Angeles. But because it leads to these bizarre results, and because it sometimes leads to, we also see this in where they will try to get injunctions. A politician, the president, will take some action, and they'll go to get an injunction from a federal judge in a favorable jurisdiction that will then apply to the entire United States. So there are ramifications of all of this that may lead to consequences that we don't find to be all that fair or in the pursuit of justice. And they are trying to peel some of this back and become a little bit more strict about this. But I think they're going to run into issues because of this idea of jurisdiction has been so rooted in our case law and jurisprudence for so much time that the idea that where a person lives establishes jurisdiction and where the alleged incident took place establishes jurisdiction. And they're probably going to have a better argument to be made. Well, maybe some sort of substantial business was conducted there, that the main thrust of the crime or civil wrong took place in that jurisdiction, not that it just had some collateral connection to the case. As I'm saying all of this, I feel like I'm confusing myself, but I hope that made sense to all of you. But it's an excellent question, Sneemac, and now you all have more stuff to bore all your friends about at cocktail parties, now that you know about forum shopping and the latest issues attendant to that. Oh, yes, and I failed to mention that this was something that was brought up by a episode that we did with Gavin Fish. And if you guys haven't checked it out, it's up on our channel now. We had a really great conversation about the Mickey Stines. There you are, the Mickey Stines case. So please check that out. Really, really enjoyed my conversation with Gavin. So please check that out. It's up now. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hello, Courtroom Confidential. Happy Sunday Fun Day. And so I don't even know if this is going to actually get on because it's a little spicy. But with all the heaviness and all the sadness and all the really horrible stuff that's going on, I had no interest in Cardi B until I started watching some of the clips. And Cardi is comic relief beyond belief. So I sent a clip. I don't know if it'll get played, but it just, I don't know, made me laugh in the face of all this bad stuff. So I thought I would share it. She's hilarious. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Sonia from Chicago, Illinois. Let's get you on the map. Always great to hear from Sonia, shy gal. And thank you for sending this clip. I will tell you before we play it, we're going to play it for you now. It's late at night, and Tiffany's in the bedroom on her laptop as she is, and I just hear her losing it. She is laughing her head off, like to the point of tears. I'm like, what are you doing? Has it finally happened? Have you finally cracked? And she is watching this clip over and over and over because it is pretty funny. So these are the highlights, if you missed it, from the recent Cardi B civil litigation.
Did you call her fat?
No, I was calling her a bitch.
Did you look at Miss Imani Ellis's face when you were arguing with her at the time of the incident?
I was looking at her face, but I wasn't looking like She got a pimple on her face. She got a no. I wasn't looking at her details or anything.
Yesterday you had black hair, short hair. Today it's blonde and long. Which one is your real hair? Or are they both real?
They're wigs.
You said she's bigger than you. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
How do you know that?
I mean, look.
And why were you concerned?
Because I'm pregnant and this girl's about to beat my. Hello.
Hello. Hello. I'm here. When I'm talking to you now, are we having a verbal altercation?
We having, we'll see, a debate.
Did you call her fat?
Right. Do we have like a link for that? If we have a link or something, I'll try to send it to you guys because it's worth watching again. It is hilarious. She was in rare form. But I'll say this too. That plaintiff's attorney was just not handling it right. I mean, he thought he was going to go in there and I think really kind of joust with Cardi B. And I don't think he understood exactly what he was up against. I'm not trying to say she's like, the Winston Churchill of our time as far as debate goes, but she just is not going to play into your little game and was just running circles around this poor guy in court. And he was trying to kind of give it back to her the same. Yeah, Terry L says the lawyer did not handle this well at all. He was trying to like kind of give it back to her and be funny. And it just came across as lame and weak and awkward. I mean, the whole thing about the wigs, did we need any of that? He just didn't handle it that well. Yeah, she was believable and relatable, and it worked in her favor. Afton is excellent point. And then it came down to, you're suing this woman for $24 million. Nobody's all that enthusiastic about this. You sue somebody for $24 million, you better be showing up to court in a stretcher. But you sue this woman and she doesn't come across as some sort of entitled, horrible person. She came across as very relatable. So it was very funny. Thank you for that, Sonia. We appreciate it. All right. What are we doing? We're keeping it rolling. We got a lot of great questions today, don't we? We're talking about forum shopping and Cardi B and a bunch of Donna Adelson stuff and the Alford plea. Like I said, we got a very bright community here at Courtroom Confidential. All right. Let's keep it rolling.
Hi, Justin. This is Lori from Bolivar, Ohio again. I have a question that has really just been niggling at the back of my brain during the Adelson trial, and it's not so much a legal thing, I don't think, but maybe it is. I don't know. I'm really puzzled by Donna washing the money. I don't understand this. Did she think that laundering money meant actually washing it? Do you think she washed it so that there wouldn't be fingerprints? I don't know. Nobody really talks about this. And if you talked about it before and I missed it, I do apologize. But I would seriously like to know what the heck is up with actually washing money. So if you know, I would really love to hear about it. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thanks to the mods. Thanks to everybody that puts on this show, which I love so, so very much. And I look forward to hearing your answer if you can come up with one or maybe make one up, whatever. Thank you so much. Bye.
Love that you asked this, Lori. Lori, let's put you on the map. Lori from Bolivar, Ohio. There you are. Good to hear from you. Okay. Yes. Why was the money wet? So this comes from, if you guys hadn't followed this part of the trial, Catherine McBanois testified that when she went to Charlie Adelson's house the night of the murder to pick up the money, to pay herself and the hitmen, that and Charlie tells her, by the way, that his parents had just left. So it was kind of implied, if not explicitly, it was implied that the money was given to him from Donna, and the money she described as being damp and moldy. And that was because she physically washed the money. And yes, Lori, I think you're absolutely right. The idea was that someone had told her that they needed to launder the money, and she took that literally, which is, in the midst of this nightmare, horrific case, just hilarious. I mean, you have to laugh at how silly this whole thing is. I also imagine a conversation taking place between Donna and Harvey where she's telling him, well, he said we have to wash the money. What are you talking about? We have to wash the money. I don't know why we have to wash the money. We just have to wash the money. Quit arguing with me about it. Let's just wash the money and get it over there. This is no longer, it's not important why we need to wash it. We just need to wash it. I don't know if she got in her head that maybe it was clever because of DNA or fingerprints or what. But anyhow, they wash the money. They don't dry it properly. And it shows up damp and moldy to the hitmen and in middle lady. Just horrific. I mean, it's like, it's like I could feel this almost being a Coen Brothers movie one day with that element as being a part of it. Thank you so much, Lori from Bolivar, Ohio, for asking the question. All right. Bluebird, thank you so much for the super chat. Super important Cardi B question. Why did it take so long to go to trial if it happened in 2014 or 2018? Bluebird, this is going to shock you. That is lightning quick when it comes to civil lawsuits. Civil cases take years to handle, especially in Los Angeles. My brother works as a civil attorney. I at one point worked with him for a little bit. It is typical for a case to not even get set for trial until after about 3 years or so. People get in accidents, horrible auto accidents, and they're not even talking about trial into 3 or 4 years down the road. And then you go into court and you say, Your Honor, we would like this set for trial. And you're sitting in September of 2025, and the judge goes, fantastic. I'm going to set this for November of 2026 because it's a huge bottleneck and backlog, and because it doesn't have the same constitutional speedy trial issues. There is no speedy trial right when it comes to civil suits. So these things can drag on forever. Now, there are limits. There are these kind of 5-year deadlines where things start to become an issue, where you have to file certain documents to go past that. But many times these things will get up to the point of reaching those deadlines before they actually go to trial. So it took so long because good luck trying to sue anybody and get that to court really quickly. Even if you try to, the judge is still going to give it about a year. So even if you finish all of your discovery, all of the depositions take place, all of the interrogatories are answered, all of the requests for documents have taken place, even if you do all of that in lightning quick fashion, which you won't, the judge is still going to set the trial out for about a year. So it was a real shock for me to learn that. And good question, Bluebird. And I'm glad that you asked it so that we all kind of understood that a little bit better. All right, let's keep it rolling.
Hello, Joshua, Tiffany, and Kaylin. Hello to all the fabulous mods in the CC crew. This is Mimi D, and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. My question is about non-speaking objections. Can you explain, Josh, what this is, why it's used, and in what type of case would it be used best? Also, do you think that non-speaking objections alienate the jury in any way and maybe keep them from understanding key objection points? So that's my question. Thank you so much.
Mimi from Evansville, Indiana. Let's put you on the map. You see what I'm saying about how smart our community is? Non-speaking objections. I want you, the next time you go into a Starbucks or a Coffee Bean or a Caribou Coffee, if you know, you know, ask the barista what they think about non-speaking objections, and you tell me how long of a blank stare you're going to get. And I am not disparaging baristas at all. I'm just saying most people are not conversant in these types of conversations. So thank you, Mimi from Evansville, Indiana. What are non-speaking objections? Why are they used? What are the point of them? Do they have problems? Do they, cause confusion for the jury? Well, for the most part, they're kind of the rule, not the exception, to have non-speaking objections. What a non-speaking objection traditionally means is when you object in court, you give the grounds for the objection, but nothing else. You don't start to explain or argue to the judge what the objection is. So, hearsay, foundation. Now, as I'm sitting here, I'm blanking on every other objection that exists. Non-responsive, whatever the objection is. You just give the legal grounds before 352. That's another one that's kind of more probative than prejudicial is that objection. That's according to Evidence Code 352 in California. So you'll even hear attorneys in California just say objection 352. So sometimes you're even speaking in code to the judge. And the reason for that is you want to make the objection, you want it put on the record, you want to stop the questioning, you want the judge to give an answer to it, but you don't necessarily want to give the jurors insights into the arguments being made by the attorneys. A speaking objection is where you get up and you say, Your Honor, objection, this is facts not in evidence. We have not heard anyone testify so far that the defendant had a knife in his hand at the time of blah, 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 blah. And now you're arguing. Now you're arguing. Now you're perhaps testifying. And now you are influencing the jury. So most judges will put a stop to that real quick. Most attorneys, or the clever ones, will try to get a little bit of that in before they get chastised by the judge. Where you see it's taken to an extreme degree is like what we saw in the Karen Reed case, where the judge doesn't even allow the grounds for the objection to be made. I thought that was very frustrating. Now, the funny thing about it is that lawyers, attorneys have been doing this so long that they usually do know the objection that you're making. If there is a hearsay issue at play, everybody in the room kind of understands that's what's happening. And when you say objection, the judge gets it. Or you've had pretrial rulings on things and you're making an objection at that pivotal point, the judge knows what you're talking about. But I thought that was silly for the judge to say no grounds for objections. The jurors don't really get affected by it. It made for an awkward transcript in court. I didn't get it. But anyhow, that's what a non-speaking objection is. So next time you're at Caribou Coffee, you can educate your barista as to your thoughts on non-speaking objections. Thank you so much for that, Mimi from Evansville. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We got a few more, guys. We're coming down to the end. We've got an at-bat on deck and in the hole hitter coming up here. And a technical difficulty. Not my fault.
My name is Clara Thomas. I live in the big city of Blackshear, Georgia. My question to you is, just this week, Nate Eaton on Courtroom Insider reported on Chad Daybell's letters. They're very offensive. But my question is there something legal that can be done to stop a murderer from publicly putting out his nonsense in the world? Thank you.
Clara, thank you so much. Calling from the big city of Blackshear, Georgia. Let's put you on the map there. Great question. So Nate Eaton, who's another he's a reporter, and he's got a YouTube channel, and he does really incredible work. He did, if you know about Chad Daybell and Lori Daybell, you know who Nate Eaton is. He's also got an excellent YouTube channel. We ran into him in at CrimeCon. He actually sat me down for a short little interview that I think is up on his YouTube channel now that you can check out as well. But he put out this video. There's the link where he went through this whole thing that Chad Daybell has been publishing through his daughter, I believe it is, letters from prison. So he's writing letters, sending them to, he doesn't have access to the internet, doesn't have the means or mechanism to create a website, but he's writing letters, sending them to his daughter, I believe. And then his daughter is publishing them on this website. And Clara is righteously indignant about this. And I feel the same way. He's trying to continue to promote his own agenda and his own religious views and his own innocence and everything else. And it's just a bunch of garbage and filth that none of us want to fill our minds with. And so Clara's point is, how does he even have this mechanism? How does he even still have this bullhorn? And he's got this website. It's called lettersfromchad.com. It's out there. You want to check it out, go for it. I didn't spend any more time than it took to take this screen capture of the whole thing to look at it. I didn't read any of it because I really don't need my mind filled with the ramblings of a psychopath. But Clara's point is, what can we do to stop this? We really can't. He has a he has a First Amendment right to free speech. And even if convicted of a felony, and even looking at the death penalty, that is not something that we can take away from someone. Now, he can be restricted by the prison. They can say no more letters for some sort of disciplinary reason. But, he's allowed to send letters, and his daughter is allowed to publish things on the internet, and nothing illegal is happening. Unless they start to conspire to commit a crime, they're allowed to do it. Gisela from Grizzly True Crime. Thank you, everybody. All the Grizzlies in the house and everybody who should be a Grizzly. Check out Gisela's channel, Grizzly True Crime, says he should talk through his magical portal and leave us all alone. I agree. He should, talk to the saints and leave it at that, and quit trying to influence the outside world. And by the way, I don't think it's going to be the end of this. I think that as soon as Lori gets a pen pal, she'll probably start her own. And anybody else who's now in prison, in the advent of the internet, probably going to be seeing more of this. June, you're such a gem. Thank you, June. And your lovely, what's the puppy's name? I want to know, June. June says in her super chat, this time of year sucks. I have football to follow, NASCAR to follow, and Sunday Funday. So I have to figure out which to watch. This is not fair. Am I messing with football time already? Has that happened? Is there a race on or a game on that I'm in the middle of right now? I will get, okay. Oh, Kaylin's giving me the wrap it up signal. Let's wrap it up so you can get to NASCAR and football. Sorry about that, but thank you for reminding me, June. All right. Let's keep it rolling here. So anyhow, that's what's happening. Not much can be done about it, except you know what you can do? Ignore it into oblivion. So there you go. All right, let's keep it going. 2 more questions here. Messing with football. What are you doing, Ritter?
Hey, it's Shell from the beautiful Panhandle of Florida. I do have a question, but first I want to say a huge thank you to Josh, Tiffany, and Kaylin for all your hospitality at CrimeCon. You couldn't have been nicer, and thank you again for letting me sit with you at the Clue Awards. All 3 of you are just genuinely kind people. My question is not related to any particular case. If you want to hold on to it for a future Sunday Fun Day when you're running a little short on questions, that's fine. But I'm wondering what the difference is between a pretrial conference and a pretrial hearing. As always, thank you for all you do. Take care.
Shell, So good to see you at CrimeCon. Thank you so much for all your help. You were invaluable, and thank you for sitting with us while we sweated bullets, wondering if we're going to win an award, which we did not. And then Shell was there to provide a shoulder to cry on. But you were fantastic. So good to hear from you. And great question. There we are. There you are, Florida. We're putting you on the map. First of all, so we're not all in anticipation. Thank you, June. My dog's name is Maximo. He is also my service dog. Oh, cute. Maximo. Love it. It's a great name. What is the difference, Shell wants to know, between a pretrial conference and a pretrial hearing? The difference is the words conference and hearing, and that's about it. There's really no difference. All of these things, every jurisdiction has their own little terms that they like to place on things. They, I practice in Los Angeles, but I've handled many cases throughout the state of California and even outside of the state. And it's like you're learning a whole new language every time because everybody's got their own, we call it a pretrial. Well, we call it a pretrial conference. It's a PTC, it's a PTH, whatever it is. And everybody's speaking their own language to just be the cool kids. But it basically is all the same thing. Before trial, you're having pretrial hearings, and those hearings are going to be about calendar issues or about evidentiary issues. And then you've got trial, and that's, it's only big chunks of time. You got pre-prelim, post-prelim, pre-trial, and trial. And that's the stuff that you really need to worry about. Maximo does sound like a sophisticated gentleman. For instance, and then we all speak in acronyms. So I'm going to give you guys a little quiz here on what some of these acronyms mean. First of all, we got PTC. I kind of already gave that one away. We've got PHS. I'll take your guesses on that. TWAP. TWAP. I'd like to TWAP this, Your Honor. Happens all the time. What does that mean? Sorry, Your Honor, it's FTA on this case. Or we would like to put this down for BWRQ. Any guesses I will take and appreciate. PTC is pretrial conference, of course. PHS is a preliminary hearing setting, meaning pre-prelim. You're not doing the prelim, you're just having a prelim setting. TWAP, TWAP. Any guesses on that? That is time waived for arraignment in plea. TWAP sounds offensive. Time waived for arraignment in plea. It's your first time, and we would like to waive time for arraignment to put it over to another day. We'd like to TWAP that, Your Honor. FTA, my client's FTA, meaning he failed to appear. BWRQ, my client has now appeared, and a bench warrant was set, and I would like to now have the bench warrant recalled and quashed. BLT, hold the tomato. Okay, so I thought this would be fun. This is what a typical offer would look like when you show up to court on a case. Kaylin just pinned it here. And you'll say, here's the offer. This, you might be handed a little Post-it note that says this. CT1:36FP/180CJ/SNS/WC/REST/Harvey/SAPO. What does that mean? And it takes a while to learn all of this stuff, but if you've immersed yourself in the criminal world in Los Angeles, this means they would like your client to plead to count one for 36 months of formal probation, 180 days of county jail, plus search and seizure conditions, plus weapons conditions, plus restitution, plus a Harvey waiver, which means that they have to pay restitution on even the counts that they're not pleading to, plus a stay away protective order. And that is a typical plea, and that's how it all looks. And that's why that's what you have to go to law school for. You go to 3 years of law school to just learn what all these acronyms mean. So there you go. Thank you, Shelley. So good to see you at CrimeCon. Right. And that's how I respond when I get that offer. I respond back with WTF. All right. That sounds like the morning after the night before. All right. Who's bringing us home? last question of the day. Tears all around. It's time to watch some football. Who do we got?
Good morning, Josh, and all the Sunday Fun Day crew. This is Carolyn from Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and it was so great to meet you at CrimeCon. It was quite the event, and just had such a great time. And thanks for your graciousness and for being there. I had more of a comment. Wondered what your thoughts on this were. I'm just broken with the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I was listening to Governor Cox's press announcement, and I think he's been doing a really good job. And he mentioned something about involving the family when it comes to prosecuting and punishment. And I'm wondering, I just sort of feel like when it comes down to it, I'm almost thinking Charlie Kirk's family will not want the death penalty. So just had that thought, wanted to share it with you, wondered what you're thinking. I am definitely pro death penalty. I'm okay with it, but there's just something about this and about the kind of person he was and wanting to debate and listen. And anyway, just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Have a great day. Thanks for, I'm hoping you make it to Utah this weekend. I think you do a great job keeping us informed. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Carolyn, what a wonderful and touching way to bring us out. Thank you so much. Carolyn from Highlands Ranch, Colorado. Carolyn says she was broken about this one. I am too. I think it's just, it's rough. It's been a rough week. I think, for us as a country, as a people, as a culture, this is certainly not a political issue in my view at all. I mean, we just all, in my view, we watched a young man, 30-something years old, 31 years old, I think he was, and a young father with a wife, 2 children, one 3 years old and one 1-year-old, who will now grow up not knowing their father. He got shot in front of a crowd of people, and everybody was just there exercising their First Amendment rights, and they were involved in, just debate on issues, and that man lost his life. And I think it's I remember the moment I heard that he had actually passed, because for the longest time it was being reported that he was in critical but stable conditions. And I was, as horrific and nightmarish as it was, I thought, well, he's going to pull through. Stable usually means somebody's under the care, being treated, they've stabilized him, and he should be able to pull through. And then we hear that he passed, and it just, I got a sickness in my stomach that I haven't felt in a long time. It's just a real tragedy. So as far as your question goes, though, Carolyn, the Governor Cox, he gave some incredible remarks, by the way, during that press conference. Governor Spencer Cox talked about what this means for us as a people and as a country and everything else. But he also made it abundantly clear that they intend to pursue the death penalty in this case. And putting aside your political or religious or moral views on the death penalty, if we do have a death penalty on the books, I think this is exactly the kind of case it should be reserved for this kind of premeditated, horrific assassination of someone. That is the man that's been arrested and is alleged to have committed this crime. His name is Tyler Robinson. We're starting to learn a lot more information about him and what may have motivated him to do this. But putting aside even his motives, not not consequential to me as far as whether or not they should pursue the death penalty in this case. And I agree with you, Carolyn. I wonder how Charlie Kirk would feel about pursuing the death penalty in this case, because he was a very religious man, a man of faith. He might have had some different feelings about the whole thing. But I think the state of Utah's got some pretty strong feelings about it too. And I imagine that they are going to pursue the death penalty. As Carolyn points out, it's a good segue because I am leaving on a plane this evening to go out to Utah. There's going to be the arraignment coming up probably on Tuesday. I'm going to be doing a lot of coverage for, you guys know, in kind of my other job. I do some legal commentary. I'm a legal contributor for Fox News. So if you want to check it out, I'll be on there sporadically throughout the next couple of days talking about this case. And I think it's going to be a case we're going to be talking about for a long time. It's a really a watershed turning point, pivotal moment, I think, historically, that we've witnessed a person who was not a politician, by the way, not an elected official, just somebody out there speaking their mind in a respectful way, to be murdered. Probably something we're going to be talking about for a very long time. But that is our show for this week. As always, if you guys want to leave us a question for next Sunday, you feel like this looks like fun and I missed out, I want to ask a question, we'll then go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on leave us a message, and we will answer that live next Sunday. If you are curious about joining membership and you said, well, hey, I didn't get one of those memberships that got handed out, I want to be part of the membership program. We hope that you do. We put a lot of work and effort into making that something worth your while. Then also go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on become a member and learn about all the benefits of that. And if you were interested in, I forget who it was, they said they loved the shirts. They're calling from the UK. We ship to the UK, by the way. I think we ship all over. I don't know if there's a place we don't ship to. What am I wearing? What is this one today? Blue. Is this the Courtroom Confidential blue? The crew blue? Somebody's going to tell me soon enough. Anyhow, you want this color? You want any of the other colors? It looks purple to me, says Kaylin. Yes, says Tiffany. Oh, I do know my blues. If you want this one or any of the other colors and designs, we've got everything up. We've got tumblers. We've got this little wine on the go, Pinot on the go tumbler, says let's get juiced on it. A bunch of other stuff, notebooks and stickers and all the other cool stuff that you guys could ever want. Check it out at the shop on courtroomconfidential.com. What did you miss on this weekend? Yesterday we had our weekly roundup. We talked about DeCarlos Brown, Laken Snelling. Interesting case that we didn't get any questions on this week. Ruth Miller, another horrific case about a woman who drowned her son to send him to God. A bunch of other stuff. Rex Heuermann that we covered. All the stuff that you missed this week, you can catch up on all of it. We've already got our episode out yesterday. Stay tuned. Like I said, Monday through probably Wednesday, I'll be in Utah and doing some hits for Fox News. So please check that out, covering the Charlie Kirk case. On Monday, we are going live. I'm going to be going solo because we've got a lot to catch up on the week. What to expect. Luigi Mangione's in court. A bunch of other people. It was a very, very busy week. So we'll catch you up on all of that. Wednesday, we're working on a guest. That's still TBD. But both of these will still be going live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, unless something prevents me from doing that. I'm bringing all my equipment with me, so we'll be doing mobile live shows for Monday and maybe even perhaps Wednesday. D. Bullard says, thank you, Super Josh, for a great Q&A. Sunday Fun Day. Peace and safety be with you and your family on your trip. Be with you on your trip. Thank you so much. And thank you for the juice boxes. Then Saturday, a special announcement. Wait a minute. Wrap it up. Says just a picky girl. Thanks, Josh, Tiffany, Kaylin, Mobs, and CC crew. You are amazing. Thank you for all you do. Wonderful group we have formed here. You all should be very proud of what you've created. That's very sweet. Well, you're a big part of it. Thank you. Saturday, September 20th. we are going to have our monthly members only live. So we're having our September members only live. That is for the membership program. Here's the tiers. I feel like I don't talk to enough about this, but there's different levels of membership that you can join with different benefits. And if you're in the classified or above, then we do these monthly lives, and they're fun. And we talk about a bunch of goofy stuff, and we talk about books and movies and recipes and story time, and Tiffany and Kaylin hop on there. So if you want to hear from them, please check it out this coming Saturday, the 20th at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and just make sure that you're in that classified or above membership level, and it can join us. CrimeCon's coming up quickly, not a whole year away, but just a few months away. May 29th through 31st of 2026 in Las Vegas, baby. So please join us there. We've already purchased our tickets. I've already bugged CrimeCon to send us a discount code. They said we will after we do this early bird special. So that actually starts tomorrow with the early bird pricing. Take advantage of that. And then soon to follow will be a discount code for Courtroom Confidential folks. And thank you again. Yes, June, for all the gifted memberships. That was very, very kind of you, and very, very unexpected and sweet of you. All right, guys. Big thanks to our mods, Afton and Sonia, Kathy, and therapists. Big thank you to Kaylin for making everything run so smoothly. And a big thank you to Tiffany for working the comments in the background and being the best thing that ever happened to me. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, guys. And I will see you all and talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.